Welcome back to the Sip and Swish podcast with your hosts, Nick Reed, Lucas McLean, and myself, Jason Stoltz. Let's get into the first quarter where we discuss the best and worst from the last week in the association. We call it sipping or swishing. Now, there's some uniform changes going on right now, guys, and we all believe that they're sipping. The Nuggets and Grizzlies are making some departures from their current uniforms. So the Nuggets are dropping the powder blue and are going to navy, maroon, and gold. Grizzlies ditching the light blue accent and opting for a silver replacement. What's wrong with light blue, guys? What's going on?
I kind of like the Nuggets' new jerseys.
Oh, the blasphemy. They have the best jerseys in the league.
I know, but
Why?
they kind of look really cool.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it if it was just like an alt jersey, you know?
Sure.
If it was like an alternative and they still had that but I miss this doesn't look like the rainbow Nuggets jerseys. Those are the best.
Those are the best.
I should have worn my hat for that.
The Nuggets have a history of having amazing jerseys.
Right. I think I really think that Nuggets jersey comes close to the old Hawks jersey. Like the 93 Hawks had the best jerseys ever. And the current Nuggets jerseys were just like up to par with that. And now they're changing it. I don't know why, other than just like the cycle that NBA teams go through every like 6 years of like, okay, let's rebrand ourselves to make like more money. Like, oh, this kid needs the newest jersey.
Right.
I feel like that's the only reason why they're doing it, is to do like a new rebranding, let everyone that constantly buys Nuggets stuff to have to re-buy like the new iPhones or re-up.
But yeah, it feels way more generic. Like the existing ones are way more unique, way more singular. The new ones are just going to be, I don't know, kind of your run-of-the-mill professional sports jersey.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan.
I don't like this. Like, is that a dark red?
Maroon is how I saw it described.
Yeah, I don't like that one. I don't understand where that color came from, but they need to get rid of that one.
The logo kind of looks cool because it's a little darker theme. I think I could roll with that and not get too mad. But the Grizzlies, looking at the Grizzlies changing their colors, I don't see the purpose of replacing the light blue with just gray. Like, that's all they're doing now.
They're calling it silver, Lucas. But it doesn't look gray.
Get them on your time.
I don't like it. I mean, that means they're going to wear like a third of the year, they're going to wear like a jersey that the primary color is gray.
Right.
And I don't like that. Like, I think the Cavs do it now with the Land. They're like a statement jersey that they've been wearing recently. Sure. It's just gray, and it's like blah, and I'm just not a fan of it. I don't know. I don't like change.
So what do we think of the Clippers getting a new sponsor for their uniforms, the dating app known to the kids as Bumble?
Jason had no idea what Bumble was.
No, these guys had to educate me. I'm way too old and have been married for way too long to know Bumble.
I thought it was funny.
I hope my wife's listening. I have no idea what Bumble is, baby. No idea.
Tinder.
We saw. We watched the Clippers game last night, and that was the first moment when I saw it, and it made me smile. It was just kind of funny that there's like a dating app.
I feel like
plastered now on the NBA somewhere.
It just kind of shows where we are as a culture. That, you know, maybe 10 years ago, it was almost taboo, almost a little strange to have to admit to someone like, I met my wife on a dating site. Yeah. And now it's just so mainstream that it's on an NBA jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, if you meet your wife on Bumble, I'm just kind of sad still for you. It's not like a real dating app. It's more like a hookup app. One of those cool hookup apps, you know?
I mean, I guess.
can't comment.
But I want to know where the next stage of this is. Like, I want
soccer jerseys,
the Pacers to have farmers only. Like, I want...
That's brilliant. I hope that the Pacers are listening to this podcast, and we know they are. That's wow.
I want farmers only on their jersey. I want that to be the next sponsor.
So you just put peanut butter and jelly on 2 pieces of bread, my man.
Yep.
That is a great call.
Would the Jazz have like a Mormons only kind of thing?
They would. Every single team should have a dating app be their sponsor for at least the next 3 years.
Oh my God, we need to brainstorm this and really think through it.
The Charlotte Hornets would be like ChristianSinglesMeet.com.
The Lakers will just be like LA Singles.
Singles perfect.
We could do an
The
entire
Knicks
podcast.
could be J-Date.
Oh, this is going to be perfect.
I'm allowed to say that I'm Jewish. All right, moving on to on-court things. Blazers, you are swishing. Winners of 8 in a row, including some quality wins over the Warriors, the Jazz, the T-Wolves, and OKC.
Don't forget the Lakers in there. That was a good game.
That was a good game.
Bad team.
Better than your team.
The Suns. Lucas's Suns.
I mean,
and they are better.
It's fair, but
So we've got Lillard averaging above, in this season he's averaging in every major stat above his career averages. He's having an enormous year and kind of has been coming on lately because I remember talking about how his performance were, how his numbers were, in maybe our second or third podcast, and it wasn't that great. But check this out. According to NBA.com, Lillard now has scored 354 points over the past 10 games. That's more than any Trailblazer has scored in that same span in team history.
that's absurd.
Because they've had some amazing players.
Yeah.
Did no one tell Damian that he actually got into the All-Star game this year?
Right.
Like, he just
didn't get
completely
snubbed.
forgot.
This isn't
Like,
like a
he didn't get
snub
snubbed.
fight.
He's just dominating. So, my question to you guys is, who would you want on the floor with the ball in the fourth quarter with the game on the line? In the entire league.
The whole league?
Whole league.
Well, if I had to do like a top 5, I'd probably have, Curry, Durant, Lillard. He's pretty clutch.
I honestly think Damian is more clutch than both those players. He continuously in the fourth quarter, even the game I watched, he played the Lakers, we were up by 10. He hit 4 3-pointers straight, just walking up the court, like 28, 30 feet out, pull up. What are the games?
But his shooting percentage is kind of streaky.
It is streaky, but the fourth quarter he seems to pull it together. That Celtics game that we watched, where Al Horford ended up winning it at the buzzer, but he carried the team on his back.
This whole season he's been pretty streaky, and it's been pretty low, like compared to like career averages and then last year. But I'm probably going to say something preposterous right now. I think Lillard is like a hipster Curry right now. He's in Portland. He's Portland hippie. Rip City,
baby.
And Lillard's averages across the board are better than Curry's first MVP year. He's averaging over 10 threes a game right now.
But what about field goal percentage and 3-point field goal percentage?
The 3-pointer is right there. It's like point.
Really?
Yeah, it's like 0.4.
He's killing it.
He's killing it. His field goal, it really slumped down because the beginning of the year he didn't play well and then he got injured. But, the last, 20 games, he's been murdering it. And it blows my mind that a player does attempt more than 10 threes in a game. And the only person that I ever thought about doing that was only Curry. And now you have Lillard who's doing it just as well as Curry. I love it.
It's
I think the
Blazers.
The Blazers.
The Blizzards.
There's currently a blizzard outside here in Lake
Yes.
Placid, New York. Basketball mecca of America.
The basketball mecca. Now, does Damian get, not like he's going to win it, but any MVP consideration since the Blazers?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think he deserves it, to be honest.
Not
in
even
comparison.
not even like a, you're like fifth or
For an
fifth.
MVP, you have to have those moments, and he's not really averaging.
He just
what
had
he
a moment
should
against
be.
the Lakers.
in my
Right.
heart.
But I can remember 6 times when Westbrook last year felt like this is the MVP because I can feel it.
Right.
What was
Lillard
it?
hasn't had a moment where he's the next day people I had 2 people at work the other day tell me how cool Harden's step back was and how he killed Wesley Johnson. And I'm like, okay, that's an MVP move because people that don't watch basketball know who that is and know that name,
Right.
know that play. But that's an MVP. Lillard doesn't have that. And you need that.
You're
need that
absolutely right.
name recognition.
You need the numbers, and you also need the storyline.
I think storyline is more important at sometimes. Westbrook's about to get a triple-double. Last year he had one. Last year he had the storyline. This year he doesn't.
This year his team's bad. 27, almost 5, and 6 for the year.
For Dame.
For Damian. Third
Yeah.
seed in the West. People are giving Anthony Davis, who is dominating.
But is he a top 5 candidate? I don't think he's top 5 candidate.
Who would be the others?
I think people would argue
James,
Curry and Durant would be in the top 5. They're going to split votes, but
I
they're
think
up there.
it's almost like the LeBron thing where it's getting to
LeBron will be up there.
LeBron's not up there anymore.
I think he's maybe 5.
I think LeBron's 5.
Yeah, maybe a 5.
LeBron's 5. Then you have Curry, Durant,
AD,
yeah,
and Harden.
Yeah, I don't see him top 5.
But that is he's just the snub life.
It's
just always going to be snubbed.
Snub life. Detroit Pistons sipping. And we're all sad about this because all 3 of us have projected that the Pistons were going to be the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference for the playoffs. I'm pretty sure we're all off that.
Yeah, I don't think it's mathematically possible.
Like
they'd have to win out.
Well, it's literally mathematically possible.
But it's
not
so
like your
hard.
Phoenix Suns missing the playoffs, which is a mathematical guarantee.
Oh God, we're getting that first pick. We're getting Aton.
You're gonna get the 4th pick, like it's written in the scriptures.
But I'm just really concerned about Detroit. In their last 11, they're 2-9. Blake can't stretch the floor, and neither can Drummond. But Drummond was they started off so hot. What'd they win? They won 7 out of their first 10 or something with Blake, and then
I think it might have been maybe
somewhere around there. They were winning 70% of their games at one point, and then for whatever reason, this combo doesn't work.
We had thought that the All-Star break was going to be good for them because they had started to slip a little bit in the couple of games leading up to the All-Star break. I remember the 3 of us talked about, it's going to give them time to figure it out. And they've lost 6 out of 7 post the All-Star break. They've lost 3 in a row, including a March 2nd loss to the future Seattle Supermagic.
It's a really good thing that Blake Griffin isn't on a Supermax deal. Because
I don't think that matters. I really don't think that matters. I think the writing was on the wall way before Blake showed up, though. That supporting cast was so bad, and it still is. Name the bench.
I couldn't even name the starting 5. Well, Ish Smith is their starting point guard. They don't have their starting point guard.
Their team is so bad where it's to the point when you watch highlights of Blake, he's just standing there so depressed because the team he was just on had competent players, had a supporting role, and it wasn't always now Blake is taking 16-foot jumpers when he was making layups on the Clippers. He's forced out so much farther because Drummond is just sitting in the paint. Now when he goes to paint, there's 3 guys there ready to guard him.
Both the teams that Blake has been on this year are both at the 9th seed, but one team could actually make the playoffs, and the team he's on has no chance of making the playoffs now.
But the Clippers are 10 deep with role players.
I also don't want to gloss over the fact that it's not like Blake Griffin is playing poorly. He is not why this team is losing. He absolutely, in my opinion at least, he's absolutely
slipping
not.
A little bit recently, but I think it is what we've been saying. He just maybe doesn't care right now, or he's kind of
I think it's a huge thing. At this point right now, the team, they probably had their own little sit down and were hey, we're not as good as we thought we were. We might not make the playoffs unless we have a killer end of the season run. Just prepare to not make the playoffs, sort of thing.
Lucas,
and now Blake doesn't care.
Do you want to hear what Stan Van Gundy has to say about this?
Yes, I do.
Because I'm our resident quote guy.
All right, I'm ready.
All right. So, Stan Van, and quote, "We're playing so frustrated. Frustrated with the referees, frustrated even more by the ball not going in the basket. We're a very frustrated group right now. It's very hard to play like that." That might sum it up. It's deflating when you get to that point. And you've seen it with other teams this year. You've seen it with other teams in years past. When basically your entire organization just hits that frustration wall, it's really hard to get over. It could switch like that. It absolutely could, but they'd have to win a lot.
They would.
A whole lot to get back in this thing.
Yeah.
The Cavs need to go, or not the Cavs, God. The Pistons need to go to a wishy-wash and get that frustration out.
Oh, God.
So,
moving on.
Not that I disagree. Mental health in the NBA. We're not going to sip or swish this topic. In case you're unaware, I'm not sure how you would be if you're listening to this podcast. Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan have opened up over the last week, 10 days, about some mental health issues. DeMar, in a sense, opened the door for Love, who then published an article on the Players Tribune about suffering a panic attack during a game and actually seeing a psychologist since. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I read the Kevin Love article. I thought it was really well worded, and it kind of shines some light on the whole fiasco that was going down in Cleveland. Everyone's calling him a fake being hurt, fake being injured, but he technically was injured in his own way of the fact of having a panic. I've never personally had a panic attack, but I think since these players are seen as role models, this is a great step for them in the culture that is now. A lot of mental illness is not being shed light on. So I think a star of Kevin Love's magnitude it's good for a lot of people, and it really shows it out. And DeMar DeRozan, same thing. I mean, he only tweeted out, said something.
Right, it wasn't depression as detailed.
It was just saying, hey, I'm depressed, which you wouldn't expect from the Raptors being the number 1 seed. But I really appreciate it. I think it's a great move.
I mean, I think it just adds to the fact that basketball is the greatest sport on the planet. It's
best league.
It is the best league. This just brings the human element into sports even more because they are people at the end of the day. We love ragging on them. Season goes on, we go with analytics saying, oh, we should have done this because of this. And it's like at the end of the day, no, it doesn't matter what these numbers say. It's a person. They could just be having a bad day.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter what this stat says there. They're a person. They might be feeling weird.
And that's what we like about the NBA to begin with, right?
There's so much individualism.
We see their faces. They're not wearing a helmet. We see their personality because Adam Silver and David Stern before him allows us to see their personality. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think this was my favorite quote. Kevin Love said, it was a perfect storm that was about to collide. He had family issues that no fan would know about. He couldn't sleep at night. Fans wouldn't know about that either. But fans do know the season expectations. All this stuff, Kevin Love wasn't going to those expectations. He wasn't living up to that. All that weighed on him at once.
Which is crazy because he was playing really well, too.
He was playing well.
People were blaming him, but those people are just
But I think that perfect moment of as soon as Isaiah came back, and Isaiah and Crowder had their little powwow, and D-Wade was kind of like an issue, that was the time where all the stress in the world just dropped on K-Love. And now it's kind of sad to look back on because I remember kind of ragging about Kevin Love not playing
well. You wanted to trade him.
Sure.
I wanted to trade him. I was just thinking now I feel bad about it, but now you get to see the human side of basketball.
So I'm happy for both of them because it seems like it was a cathartic process. It seems like both DeRozan and Love feel better after having gotten this off of their chests. So that's great. I also am happy for anyone that it might have helped. You know what I mean? People out there that feel better about issues they're going through. Good. But, and here's my big thing, and I'm going to read from my notes because I don't want it to be misconstrued. I worry about us as a culture reaching a point where it's too easy to self-diagnose mental health or to professionally diagnose mental health issues where people, and especially kids, can begin to use it as a crutch. Almost like the ADD diagnosing epidemic that we saw, 5-10 years ago.
That was pretty much our age group. Everyone was just couldn't pay attention in class, oh, it's ADD.
Yeah.
No, you're just lazy.
Right. Some kids just aren't good students. That doesn't mean we need to shoot them up with Ritalin, So that's my concern. I also feel like if we break down all stigma around this, what stops my kids, my 2 daughters, from having the normal ups and downs of life and then thinking, oh, I'm depressed just from normal ups and downs. I need medication. Or it snowballs and they literally talk themselves into believing that they're depressed. I just worry. I worry that maybe we celebrate this so much, celebrate this open vulnerability so much that we stop celebrating other forms of strength. Yes, that's a form of strength to be able to say, as a superstar, as a male, I have this problem. But there are lots of other forms of strength, and I just don't want to see this overshadow them. What happened to the 1950s dad? The strong, silent, quiet type. He provided for his family.
I think there's probably
I'm coming at this from a different perspective than you guys, 8 years older with kids and everything. But It's the shit I think about.
I mean, I agree on a lot of points, but the one thing I think Kevin Love stressed, maybe not stressed, but just said it in his article was, it just felt right to go talk to someone else. Just talk to someone different, like a therapist. Sure. It wasn't like, oh, I got on antidepressants. It was, I'm just talking to someone, and it feels good to open up to someone.
Yeah.
I think that's the key statement in there is open up to your friends, open up to your family. Just let people know what's going on.
Welcome to the second quarter. My name is Lucas. I have hot takes for you guys this week. Last week, apparently I sounded like 06 Britney Spears saying it. So this week, I did it very monotone, very boring, so I didn't sound like an 11th grade girl. Okay.
I'm glad we got through that.
We had to. I feel
like we buried the hatchet. Like, all right, moving on. I like it.
So the first hot take
hot cake
is Anthony Davis is the best player to steal the MVP from Harden. I think it's completely fair. His team is now fourth in the West from being completely banished from the playoffs with Boogie going down. They're on a 9-game winning streak. The team is averaging 126 points per game over that streak, first in the league. Davis is averaging an absurd 38 points, 15 rebounds, 3 steals, and 3 blocks a game.
Absurd. I mean, yeah.
Pretty insane.
Classic Anthony Davis.
I think the stat goes back to, like, nobody had a peak higher as a big man than Anthony Davis right now. Like, there just isn't. He's better than Karl Malone right now. He's better than anything David Robinson did. He's better than anything Tim Duncan has ever done. This is the most insane player ever, and he actually has, I think, a better narrative than James Harden to an MVP. And I think narrative's a huge part of this.
Sure, yeah, we talked about that.
I will feel so bad for James Harden if he loses another MVP.
Anthony Davis went from not being even remotely considered an MVP a month ago to losing his co-star to now in a 2-week span murdering the league.
I agree with your hot take. I agree that he could and that he should, at this point, be second in contention. And I don't think there's anyone even close to him. So now all he has to do is surpass Harden because I don't think there's anyone that's catching up to either of them.
No.
If he can keep playing at this absurd pace, to use your word unintentionally, then I absolutely believe he will be the MVP because that would be unheard of.
Yeah.
Absolutely unheard of. And Harden's having an amazing season, but there's nothing like singular about his accomplishments. There would be if AD can keep this pace.
Yeah.
I just feel so bad for Harden.
I don't.
I mean, I kind of do. I hate watching him play. I hate watching the Rockets last night.
Oh, I need another beer.
Anthony Davis is fantastic. He's so fun to watch. It would be a great story, and I would feel kind of bad for Boogie because it'd be like, we actually don't need you, Boogie. We're going to get a wing player, like Lucas has said before.
So this hot take just makes Nick sad, apparently.
And it really does.
He hasn't added much to the conversation other than, like, I'm sad.
I'm just sad for both. Like, I'm really happy for Anthony Davis. It would, for him to take the MVP, they would have to be the 3rd seed. And
that's conceivable.
It's conceivable, but they couldn't be the 4th seed.
Really, you think?
I think the 3rd seed matters. Because the point is, like, there's the Rockets, there's the Warriors. You need to be that.
But at the 4th, you get that home court advantage. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I subscribe to that. I think the 4th seed would be enough if he continues playing at this pace.
What if he continued at this pace and at the end of the year he averaged 31, 13, 3-3? Like, there's no way you can't, like... He's got the comeback story. He's got the numbers.
Everyone wrote the team off.
He's got
the narrative.
I wrote the team off.
So are you agreeing?
He could steal the MVP. Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
I will agree on that.
All right, so my second one is Paul George's defense is overrated. Right now he's front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. But when I watched that Suns game, Suns versus Thunder, Paul George he might have taken the night off, but those are the kind of games that the Thunder can't take the night off right now because they need every win possible.
Agreed.
1/4 of all the points the Suns won was when Paul George was the primary defender. Like,
Wow.
Booker scored 19 points on Paul George, the best defender in the league.
That's a classic Lucas deep dive.
But think of like
Suns.
let's say like it would have been LeBron scoring 50 on like defensive player of the year Kawhi. It would have been like Is
he still the front runner though? I mean, after these last 15 games,
I wouldn't vote for him. If I had to vote, I wouldn't vote Paul George. I'd probably vote like Embiid. I'd probably give Embiid a vote.
Last night I don't even think I saw Paul George on the floor. It felt like he wasn't there doing anything.
He looks invisible the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. Defense, offense, just never saw him.
I guess my response to your hot take is so lame, and then it's simply that it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. And
Middle ground.
it's the first time I've kind of taken that, like, I'm pushing stance, but I just feel like quantifying a player's ability on defense is so much more difficult than quantifying it on offense based on, like, numbers, metrics.
Well, yeah, like if you look at the numbers, I would say Paul George would make it.
But if you look at alternative fact numbers, he's like 23rd in overall, or it might have even been worse, in overall defensive efficiency in certain rankings. So I don't know. I mean, I guess my eye test says he's playing great D, but defensive player of the year, maybe not.
I don't think anymore. Once Robertson went down and he lost his kind of sidekick there, his Robin.
Robin Robertson.
I think he lost the defensive player of the year then. Because they've slipped from 5th to 17th the last I checked in like defensive rating. You can't be the defensive player of the year and have the 17th best defense.
How can you be the defensive player of the year when there's someone on the team better at defense than you? How does that work? Like Robertson is better than him.
Yeah, Robertson's better.
Robertson's better.
Was that the Marcus Gasol and Tony Allen thing? It was like Marcus
Gasol won defensive player of the year and didn't make the all defensive team.
And Tony Allen was like the first all-defensive team.
Yeah. It was like, good job, voters.
As I said, hard to quantify.
So do you agree or disagree with this?
I don't agree that his defense is overrated.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, my next one is the Spurs will not make the playoffs. They have the hardest remaining schedule in the league. They play OKC twice, Golden State twice, Pelicans twice, Wizards twice, Rockets twice, Blazers, and Jazz.
I mean, OKC's free wins right now.
I don't know. That's 50-50. I mean, OKC has killed the Spurs the last 2 times, but last time.
Well, and actually just like traditionally over the course of the last, 6 years, OKC has always been a tough matchup for the Spurs.
Oh, for sure.
Well, because who's going to guard Westbrook? It's always been Tony Parker on Westbrook, and that's a terrible matchup.
So your initial little mini monologue on this take actually changed my mind.
Oh.
It did. I had written down that as long as LA, LaMarcus Aldridge, could stay on the court healthy, Spurs would make the playoffs. I think based on that remaining schedule, you're right.
It's way too hard.
I buy this hot cake.
They might take, 2 games out of that whole list? I feel brutal, like dude. They could win against the Jazz, and they might sneak a game against the Wizards, I feel like.
And I feel like this whole conversation is under what seems to be a safe assumption, no Kawhi.
No Kawhi is coming back. Powell is out right now.
If Kawhi comes back, I mean, all this out the window. Obviously.
I feel like we'd have to rediscuss this whole thing. But it'd be the first time in 19 years that the Spurs don't make the playoffs.
All good things must end.
Apparently.
Jay agrees. How about you, Nick?
I agree. They could. I mean, they're 2 games away from being out, anyways. And this 1 through 10, or not 1 through 10, 3 through 10 is insanely close.
Yeah.
Right. Every win matters. Every single loss matters. This is going to be such a fun couple of weeks. I'm very excited.
My next hot take is the players are overreacting about the officials this year. It's just true. I'm kind of sick of it. And at the beginning of the year, I kind of just summed it up as like a new rule change, like continuation. They're not going to call anymore. It's going to be a foul on the floor. So I thought that was the main reason that like players didn't really understand what the rule was going to be, so they're mad at the refs. But the players had a chance, actually. They had an NBA league setup meeting with the referees at the All-Star break, and like it was like the 10 head refs and like their association president came to this meeting and was like, okay, air your grievances. We want to talk to you. Only 2 NBA players showed up. There are 500 players in the league, and only 2 showed up, and one of them was Spencer Dinwiddie.
The boy. Yeah, but he's been, like, hated on by the refs.
Well,
in his mind.
In his mind. And the other one is Iguodala. But you had a chance.
Iggy's a good spokesperson.
But if you had a chance if you thought you were being like put down or something was wrong personally against you and you had an opportunity to say something, like that is your chance to say something. This is the time to air your grievances and fix an issue. And they didn't want it.
Here's the thing. They're just a bunch of babies.
They are a bunch of babies.
I love these guys. I love the league, but the way they act towards the referees, you're just a bunch of babies. Give it up. I'm tired of like the wide-eyed, like, what? What? That me? It's like,
I elbowed him in the face. What do you mean?
Look at the Jumbotron. It's clear as day. And my favorite is when they do all that and they're pointing up. They're telling the ref to look at the Jumbotron, like, look at the replay. And then we see the replay.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. The ref was right. And they're not always right. But I think they're right the vast majority of the time. And it's the human element. It is what it is.
Yesterday, I listened to the Low Post with Monty McCutcheon, is the referee's name. And they were talking about all these, players overreacting, what it takes to be a ref. And Low came out with a stat where it's 97% of the time the refs are right. Like, that's
insane.
That's a vast majority of the time. And
you can't live with that as a player. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
For a person, 97% was fantastic.
I would have always assumed it was like 80 just because of the human element, but 97? That's incredible.
And I asked Lucas this question yesterday, and I'll ask you it now, Jason. Looking back on the year, how many plays would you say were misread? Like, big plays. The only one I can think of is Giannis stepping out of bounds.
That was the exact one that just came to my mind.
That's the only play I can think of going back the entire season where I'm like...
So I will say, I'm trying to think back now. It was a week or two ago, nationally televised game. It was T-Wolves. It was the one where Jimmy Butler got hurt, I believe.
Really?
I believe, or maybe not. It was a T-Wolves game, and Cat, for no good reason, got ejected.
Oh, okay.
For no good. You guys remember this game?
Yeah, it was Thibs yelling at Cat. And then they both got technicals.
Yeah, it was
Cat
just
got another technical later on.
It was insane. It was absolutely insane. And I think those are the couple of times where maybe the players are right. Like, don't throw me out of this game when I'm literally doing nothing.
It was. I'm pretty sure
it wasn't a flagrant. It wasn't a flagrant. It wasn't anything over the top. It was honestly just that the ref kind of was fed up with him, and he might have laughed. He might have looked. He might have done something. He was like, T, you're out.
I think it's like, I always think of like the boy who cried wolf. Eventually, like, I don't know why this doesn't happen more because I feel like it would be so obvious. But if a player goes, oh, I was fouled, he said something dumb to me or he did whatever. And then you eventually say that like 15 times over the course of a game. And then you do one thing to like trigger a ref to be like, okay, you're pushing me over the edge with stuff. Like, you're gone. I'm sick of it. Like, I'm surprised there's not more of that because the players this year, I feel like, are just going after refs more than ever.
Aggressive and overt.
To the point where it was like Rondo of last year when Rondo shoved that ref, like shouldered him that one game. And I was like, Rondo, you really have to chill because you may never play again if you touch another ref. Like,
yeah, that's the league will defend their refs over
as they should.
It.
Like the refs are supposed to be a representation of the front office. If you disrespect the ref, it should be you're disrespecting Adam Silver. That's how I see it. And I think there should be more like repercussions to people like Draymond Green who openly like freak out.
There should never be a point where you're like swearing at a ref.
A player should think that they're talking to Adam Silver if they're talking to a ref. Like, if
it's like
that's an interesting way to think about it. I don't totally disagree.
I think it should be like that.
When LeBron got ejected this year, was his first ejection, and he stormed at the ref. Like, that's a massive individual storming at not a massive individual.
Sure.
Yelling at them.
Even just like the intimidation to your
The
point.
intimidation be like, LeBron, back up. Like, just get out of my face. This is my call. You can, if I messed up, I'll issue an apology, but
it was like when Draymond rushed that the woman ref.
The female.
And the female ref, and she was just like,
Draymond,
get out of my face. Like, you're way too close to me right now. And he was like, no, like, you're a referee. You have to take this. And it's like, refs shouldn't have to take that.
Right. They don't have to take it.
It's not their job to take your crap. It's their job to make sure
that's why
the
they can
game's
eject
efficient.
you from the game. They can get you out of there. Which I thought Monty was talking about how he's going around to all the teams, home and away teams, talking to them about grievances. They're doing a good job. Maybe that was because I didn't know they were doing that. Maybe that's one of the reasons that no one really showed up to this meeting, because they're already having talks about it. It's like, why should I go to a meeting All-Star weekend where I'm going to have a little vacation?
I guess.
Maybe.
Well, my last hot take is Westbrook is 20 rebounds away from another triple-double season. But I'm not that impressed. I don't think it's that impressive, because last year, at this point in the season, they had the same exact record they do now. But Westbrook had a ragtag team of people, and that's why it was impressive. He was averaging a triple-double with, nobody on his team. He had Steven Adams, and that was it. He had Oladipo, who wasn't the Oladipo of this year. No. He had Enes Kanter, who wasn't the Enes Kanter of this year.
Enes Kanter was pretty decent, though.
He was decent, but it was also at the end of the season they benched him because he couldn't
in the playoffs they benched him hard because he couldn't stop a pick and roll to save his life.
But the end of last season, I would have been in any argument to say that Westbrook deserved to be a top 3 player in the league. He played hard. He won game winners. The last game of the season, he had that incredibly deep double-teamed 3 to eliminate the Nuggets from playoff contention and secured the triple-double. It was the most insane play ever, and that felt like an MVP play. I was like, all right, he's a top 3 player. He really is. This season, I think it's a really good argument for a top 10. He's top 10 right now, maybe 8 or 9. I could see someone arguing somewhere bumping him out of the top 10.
So I think you're crazy for not being impressed by this. So
I'm going to agree with Jason on this.
I absolutely think your hot take is trash. So possessions have been your sons. Possessions have been tracked in the NBA since 1974. And in that year, teams were averaging 125 possessions per game, giving players from yesteryear a much greater opportunity for stat stuffing than Westbrook is afforded today. So the fact that Westbrook is doing this as only the second person ever, and maybe for the third time ever since he did it last year, how is that not impressive?
With Paul George and Carmelo Anthony on his team.
And Carmelo Anthony he's a hindrance to what Westbrook is accomplishing. He's not a benefit. So you brought up last year's team versus this year's team. How much better is this year's team, really? How much better?
It should be better.
It should be a lot better. I don't think that has a lot to do with Russ, because I feel like he tried to be deferential. I feel like he tried to really take a back seat to these guys, at least to George early on, and the Thunder looked awful.
But even if you put the triple-double in context, it's a strategic triple-double. It's not other NBA fans would argue it's not organic. But that's not really an issue because I was always a Westbrook defender, but now I'm going to use this argument against him.
Terrible.
It's a great argument because it's true. I'll defend it as being a great strategy. It's a great strategy, but the strategy is nobody get the outlet. The big men would catch the ball and do an outlet pass to Westbrook. That's not the play on this team anymore. The play is right now the instant outlet pass is Westbrook getting the rebound. That means Steven Adams doesn't crash the board. Melo now crashes the board, but he still doesn't crash the board as much as he did in New York. So it's just Westbrook, get the freaking board and run. And that's always been the plan. That's been the plan last year, and it was the plan this year. And he's getting triple-doubles, and he gets the rebounds almost midway through the third quarter.
Get the ball to your best player as soon as possible.
But it's
terrible.
Yeah, this doesn't seem crazy.
But does that rebound matter if Westbrook gets the ball or if Steven Adams gets the ball? Does that next possession actually turn into more points?
Presumably. Because you're talking about a guard, handling the ball, passing or shooting.
But isn't
Steven Adams handling the ball, passing or
shooting? I think this is a fool's argument for a triple-double. It's he's getting the ball first. If they did this for LeBron, it would be LeBron's strategically doing this to get triple-doubles.
Right.
He's intelligent. He's so smart.
The problem is I watched Westbrook against the Suns last year when that triple-double was on the line and they were down by 20 and then they were down by 30 because Booker dropped 45, and then Westbrook was still in the game against the Suns scrubs. And when the Suns scrubs are in garbage time and Westbrook is still hunting a triple-double, the thing is, he's hunting triple-doubles. That's the difference between, Let
me ask you this real quickly, please. So you're saying if your Devin Booker has 50 points at the end of the third quarter, and the Suns are blowing out their opponent. Blowing them out. Do you want to sit Devin Booker simply because it's a blowout, or do you want to see how many points he can get?
Let's just go to a game in Boston when they're intentionally fouling the other team off the bat so Devin Booker can get more possessions. Is the 70
I do recall.
I'm just saying it's not as impressive.
So the 70-point game is not as impressive.
It wouldn't be as impressive as an organic 70-point game. I would say
Lucas's last hard take wasn't as impressive as his first four.
No.
Welcome to the third quarter. This week, we have an interview with Chris Grenham, editor of SB Nation's Thunder page. Welcome to Loud City. Also a writer for SB Nation's Wizards and Celtics page. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
So we want to talk about parity in the league right now. And with the teams you write for, the Thunder and the Wizards being like right in the middle of parity standings, basically like one game separates them from 4 or 5 different teams. Do you like that? Do you like how there's so much more parity now, or is it good for the league, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I think it's definitely good for the league just because it draws more interest into the meat of the standings, which never really was the case. You know, you'd have those top 3 teams or so that would just kind of dominate the headlines and everyone would focus there, which is fine. And it is still kind of the case. You know, you look at the East and it's the Raptors and Celtics and the Cavs and then the rest. And then you look at the West and it's the Rockets and the Warriors, and then the rest. So that still kind of exists, but I think parity in the middle definitely helps just bring more attention to the rest of the league in terms of, you know, just viewership, which is what the league really looks for. But I mean, you can't deny the entertainment factor, at least in the Western Conference, where it's just a total mess from the 3rd seed all the way down to actually the 10th seed at the moment. So you can't deny the entertainment factor. So I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, tuning in last year, I wouldn't catch myself watching Portland versus New Orleans as a 3 versus 4 seed, which they are right now.
Right.
And it's fantastic. Both these teams have, I mean, Damian Lillard's going off and Anthony Davis. Did you watch that Rockets game last night against the Thunder?
I did. That was kind of, you know, the Thunder have sort of, in a weird way, they've sort of, you know, taken a lot of pride in playing against the top tier teams, and they had done pretty well. You know, obviously last night and the last time they played the Warriors didn't go that great, but prior to that, they were the only team with a 4-0 record against, I think it was the Cavs, the Rockets, the Warriors, and the Raptors. But, you know, the Rockets are the hottest team in the league right now. They've won 16 in a row. So obviously that's just, you know, you're kind of expecting a loss going into that one. But the Thunder are going through a ton of struggles of their own, so that's a whole issue in itself.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of hero ball going on last night, at least when I was watching it. Westbrook would start taking over at one point. Carmelo would step in the next.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because since the All-Star break, post-All-Star break, they've had trouble kind of getting into any sort of offensive flow. Paul George was, I think, shooting like 44% from 3 prior to the All-Star game. Yeah. And then after, he's been shooting at about 21%. So they can't really rely on him from deep. They get down against teams like Houston and stuff. And that's really when Russ has gone into his, you know, classic Westbrook tendencies where he just kind of tries to take over the game, which is fine because he's a guy who's able to bring them back into games. So that makes sense. If they're losing, you'd expect him to do that. But it's the fact that they can't rely on guys like Paul George and Steven Adams over the last couple of games that's really caused a lot of that. And it's really not a good pattern at all. And somehow they're actually at risk of missing the playoffs just with their tough schedule. So it is a messy situation in OKC at the moment.
What do you think is the playoff peak for OKC? Like which round do you think they get bumped in?
Honestly, and this sounds pretty crazy to say, but with the way they're trending right now and their final 12 games, I would not be surprised if they didn't make the playoffs.
Wow.
They're 11. I know it sounds crazy, and I kind of came to reality last night because I had been pushing this thought off for a while. But 11 of their final 12 games are against legitimate playoff teams. So we're not talking like the Jazz that are just on the outside looking in there. It's the Raptors, it's the Spurs, it's the Celtics, it's the Warriors. It's real, you know, Portland. They played a couple games against Portland, and, you know, it's not an easy schedule at all. So unless they're able to figure this out in their next few games against, I think they've got the Spurs coming up, but they've got the Suns, the Kings, and the Hawks, and then a brutal part of their schedule. So if they can use those 3 games against the Suns, the Kings, and the Hawks to kind of figure this mess out, then I think the peak is probably, I don't see them getting past the second round personally. But again, they can, if they wake up, they can play against anyone in the league, and they've shown that this year. So it's just getting in, I think, is going to be even tougher than advancing in itself.
So what's their biggest issue right now as you see it? What are they doing wrong, and what can they correct?
Well, Paul George, like I said before, is a big issue because he quickly became, rather than a second option, he became, like 1A. He was right behind Russ, and they used him equally as much on the offensive side of the ball. And he's great on defense, and that's never going to change. He's one of the best two-way players in the NBA. But I think their real issue right now is still trying to figure out their defense. They lost Andre Roberson, which everyone talks about. They're 8-9 since he went out with injury, and they're not really making the adjustments they need to make. They brought in Corey Brewer, who gives them some length on the side, and that's really it. He's a nice wing to have, but that's not going to solve the problem. Their defense relies a lot on help defense, and they push guys to the sideline and kind of rely on swift rotations. And lately their rotations just have not been very tight. They've been pretty sloppy, and their help defense just isn't there. And if that's not working, then OKC's defense just isn't working. So, it's great last night in the third quarter where they keep up with Houston for basically the entire time. But if you're not getting stops on the other end, it's not going to matter. So it's really their defensive rotations that's bringing them down at the moment.
What are your odds that you retain Paul George this offseason? Do you even want to retain Paul George?
I think if you're the Thunder, you definitely do, because he's not bringing them down. Obviously, he's shooting poorly, but that with an all-star like him, that'll straighten itself out. So that's not really a long-term concern.
Yeah.
I think the odds, even though they're playing pretty poorly, I think the odds are actually pretty good. Him and Russ are pretty tight. They've got a good thing going. I'm not sure what's really going on with Melo. He kind of does his own thing a little bit, but yeah. I think it's more likely that he will stay. I could definitely see him going to Los Angeles, obviously, but I think if he's not going to LA, I think he stays in OKC.
I feel like the Thunder are in like a weird, terrible situation, though. Like, if they get Paul George back, I think he'd be a great player and any team would want him. But then if Melo uses his player option, then you guys are in just kind of like this cap hell next year. You're in like crazy kind of luxury tax, and there'll be no way to get like role players to surround these guys. And then you're just having a whole nother season of this. Yeah,
definitely. And then you get caught in one of those vicious cycles that goes on for like 2 to 3 years where you're not really making any progress, and you're relevant, but you're not threatening to win anything. And so, it could really place them in, like you said, cap hell, which would suck. But Sam Presti is normally pretty good, manipulating around things like that. But if Melo were to pick up that option, I'm not really sure what they would do. It would kind of be messy. So then you got to start thinking about, if Presti would want to blow it up at some point, but that might be a drastic move. So I'm not really sure. We'll see what happens.
For sure.
All right. Well, let's move to the Wizards. This podcast has not been very nice to the Wizards. We kind of like started off the season sort of anti-Wizards because for me personally, it's always Bradley Beal and John Wall are always like have huge heads. They're always like
are massive.
They have huge egos, and for whatever reason, it just shrugged me the wrong way, and it was just fun to like beat them up. But now like Wall's out, and Beal is killing it. Beal's having like a career season, and I can't deny anymore that I like Bradley Beal right now. It's hard to not like him right now.
It's a tough pill to swallow for all of us here. But Bradley Beal is playing exceedingly well.
He is. I'm happy you guys are coming around. I'm actually a Wizards fan, so I'm one of those tortured. I'm one of those tortured souls that has followed this team for far too long and has suffered. But it's kind of an awkward situation because you're right. The whole ego thing, at least for the last, I would say, year and a half. The Wizards, for some odd reason, had gotten, obviously they've been a good team for the last couple of years. Yeah. And they've been on the cusp of, breaking into the elite category in the Eastern Conference. But for some odd reason, at some point, they got it in their heads that, they had made it and they were deserving of all of this. And it kind of just became like the pissed off team in the Eastern Conference where everyone was out to get them. And for some reason, they felt like they need to be, the big dogs in the room, which really didn't make any sense to me, or shouldn't have made sense to them either. But, now that John Wall's out, it's kind of restructured their ball movement a little bit, because he wasn't really able to move that well, and he was pretty sluggish on the court. He would just kind of stand in the corner when he didn't have the ball, which would then limit their ball movement. So now with Thomas Satoransky, kind of getting a lot more minutes, and Bradley Beal anchoring the scoring, it's really gives them a totally, totally different look, but it has gone very well. But, people that say they're better off without John Wall, that's just not a intelligent statement. Like, obviously they need him back, but
agreed.
It is fun. It is fun though to see guys like Kelly Oubre and Otto Porter and Thomas Satoransky really making a difference with Wall out.
It really was going to lead to my question. I guess you just answered it. Is John Wall kind of expendable? Seeing the success, could you trade John Wall for like a piece to complement Beal and Porter?
It's definitely an interesting question, because that is the proper way to ask it. It's not, are the Wizards better off without him? It's, is he expendable? And this definitely makes it a little interesting, because prior to this injury, it was no chance. Like, he is not expendable. He's one of the best point guards in the NBA. They can't operate without him. He's not expendable. But now, you make a point. Like, he has to look somewhat expendable, because they've improved dramatically since he left. That probably scares him and his agency quite a bit. But I don't think Ernie Grunfeld really has the brass to move him. I would say it really all depends on the return, because I'm a Wizards homer, like I said before, and I would like to see them at least give it one more shot with these two guys before they start shipping him around and shopping him, excuse me. It definitely does make him expendable to a sense. I would agree with that.
So one of my contentions has been that it's really hard to reach the finals, let alone win, if your two best players are your two starting guards. Do you see that as an issue?
Yeah, I do. I think it's definitely possible in today's NBA, just because the whole positionless game has kind of evolved. So I think it's definitely easier now than it was a couple of years ago to ride with, your backcourt being your best duo. But the Wizards definitely have that issue in the front court, where Marcin Gortat is just not as consistent as he used to be. He's given them 26 minutes a game, but he's not. His usage rates are down. He's not really doing much. Markieff Morris he'll look like an all-star one night, and then he just won't show up. So in the case of the Wizards, I think yes, it is definitely an issue. It's easier to find success with a backcourt that's your best players that it used to be, but I would say it's definitely an issue for this Wizards team. Yeah.
At the All-Star, at the trade deadline, actually, we did like a hypothetical blockbuster trade podcast just for fun, but a win-win scenario sort of deal for both teams. How would you felt about a Bradley Beal for DeMarcus Cousins swap? Because I feel like that would have been a win-win for both teams. But how would have you felt with like a John Wall Boogie Otto Porter trio?
Well, I mean, I have fantasized about a John Wall Boogie duo in Washington for far too long. So 2014 me would have been cheering, but I'm a big fan of Beal right now, almost more so than I am John Wall. Yeah. And I would love to see Boogie come in, but I'm not so sure that Boogie and John Wall would be able to work very well together. Their usage rates are both so high that if you're going to bring in an all-star big to work alongside John Wall, it probably shouldn't be a ball-dominant one like Boogie. And that hurts me to say, because I would love to just give them like a 10-game trial just to see what they could spark up. But I probably would not go Beal. I think Beal is much more valuable to the Wizards than DeMarcus Cousins would be.
Wow. So let's move on to the Celtics. They're exceeding my expectations right now. This whole crew right now had them at the 2nd seed, but I thought they would drop a little bit because Tatum and Brown's production failed a little bit. But how do you feel?
And also because you thought Cleveland was going to jump over.
Cleveland
he bought into the hot
nice little
take
streak.
of Cleveland.
Right.
2-game win streak.
Yeah. that was easy. That was definitely easy to jump into Cleveland post deadline, and they were like the resurrection of that team, and it was just phenomenal.
LeBron was happy.
The Celtics, yeah, exactly. That was easy, and I honestly still don't think that the Celtics can hang with Cleveland in a 7-game series.
Yeah.
I would love for them to do so, but I just don't see that happening. They started off the year, they were great, obviously, but they've given off the impression that they're much better than they actually are. They have a good bunch, and even with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's production decreasing, they're still finding ways to win, which at this point in the season is all you can really ask for. And they're going to be going through a lot of adjusting because their schedule is so drastically different from here on out than it was. They played so many games before the All-Star break, or at least before they went to London, that they were playing, basically every 2 days at least. And now they're going to have to figure out a way to continue producing while spreading out their schedule a little bit. But I think the 2nd seed is a accurate guess for where they're going to finish, but I still don't think they would be able to hang with Cleveland for a full 7 games.
Now, who would you not want the Celtics to play in the first round? Would you rather them play like the Bucks over the 76ers, or maybe the Wizards you'd rather them play?
Well, for entertainment factor, you got to want them to play Philly. That would be awesome. I would absolutely love that. I think probably Milwaukee, is probably who Celtics fans should want them to play. Just for matchup purposes, Milwaukee has struggled in a lot of departments where the Celtics have thrived. And they're just a younger team, and the Celtics have some veteran leadership in Horford and Kyrie, and I would just trust them over Milwaukee. Whereas the 76ers are just kind of the wild card where, they're young, but they don't really give a crap about anything. So I could see them somehow pulling out a series win just out of nowhere. But I think the Bucks is probably who Celtics fans should ideally want to play.
Yeah, I could easily watch a 7-game series of Boston versus Philadelphia, and I'd watch every single game.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be phenomenal.
Do you think the signing of Greg Monroe was a mistake? Do you think it could have gone after a different buyout candidate? Because I feel like Ilyasova might have been better.
Yeah, I don't think it was a mistake, but, playing Monday morning quarterback looking at Ilyasova, he probably would have been better, but realistically at the time, the Celtics needed rebounds off their bench. That was what they needed, and Monroe brought that in. But there obviously, there were probably some better candidates out there. But I think once Tyreek Evans was kind of off the table, that was their main goal initially. And once we came to, they realized that he wasn't going to leave. I think Monroe was probably the smart choice, just because it's not as flashy as an Ilyasova or Tyreek Evans or, Joe Johnson, but it is what they needed. And I think he's still going to be able to produce here and there, but it is kind of tough looking at it now, saying, they probably could have made some better moves.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. You were phenomenal. And we hope maybe you can get back on the pod sometime in the coming weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, man. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no problem, guys.
Welcome to the fourth quarter. So this is everyone's favorite quarter, obviously, because I'm hosting it. I got the lead.
Well, if you're going to be like that, you should at least talk in the third person.
Nick's got the lead.
Okay.
Nick's taking it. Nick's picking the Knicks this time. I'm just kidding. No Knicks games. They're terrible. We all know it. So I'm going to recap the season records right now. Nick has a record of 31-19. Fantastic.
It's a pretty strong record.
Jason's following up with 27-23. A little bit lower, but not terrible.
No.
And then we have Lucas, a.k.a. the Phoenix Suns, following up with 20-30 record. That's 10 games below 500, kid. Get good.
Is there any chance? Sip or Swish? Sip or Swish, is there any chance Lucas gets back to 500 before the regular season is over.
Oh, that's easy.
There's no.
No, he's sitting.
He's going to sit for the rest of
You
the
guys
season.
wait.
So last week, Lucas went 1-4. Jason and the BPI went 2-3. And yours truly with a 4-1 record. And the Phoenix Suns destroyed me. I gave them faith against the Atlanta Hawks. Faith that Devin Booker could be a player.
He was a player. He did very well.
And he lost to the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, but there are other people on the Suns that are bad.
Yeah, but even
Like every other
They
player.
don't play any big. Like they don't play big men. Josh Jackson's their center.
and Josh Jackson is doing good. I'll give him that.
He's doing good. Don't talk bad about
I said he's doing good, bud. All right, we're going to go into the game. To start off the week, this is going to be the Utah Jazz versus the Indiana Pacers.
Ooh.
So the Pacers
I like
are
it.
favored 54% at home. The Jazz are vying for that 8th, maybe 7th seed in the Western Conference. Indiana's hanging out. I believe they are the 4th still?
I believe.
Yeah. Hanging around.
They're hanging up there. So I'm going to start
Confirmed.
off.
4th seed.
4th seed, nice. Good guess, Nick. We're going to go with Lucas because I like when he starts because then I can pick the opposite and win.
Let's see. I think I'm gonna go Indiana.
Indiana. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Picking
So-
Indiana.
That makes me feel so much better about my pick. I will absolutely be taking the Utah Jazz.
Oh, me too because I want to win.
Yeah.
But
I'm just staying away from Lucas's picks.
I think Indiana does have a decent chance at this game. I think
absolutely.
it'll be a good matchup for sure. Now, moving into game 2.
Whoa.
What?
Let's go back. I'm picking the Jazz. Oladipo's not playing. I don't get these information.
Oladipo's not playing?
No, he's not playing. I'm picking
See,
the
I
Jazz.
wrote your name down.
That's not fair.
You get one chance, Lucas.
All right, I'll give it to you this time, but you should do your research ahead of time.
I'm not told the games.
That's the point. I actually didn't know. When is Oladipo? They just said that?
Yep.
That's sad. Glad you have your phone. All right, next game. We're doing the Boston Celtics versus the Minnesota Timber Puppies. The Timber Puppies are favored 59% at home. Jason, lead us off on this one. Just so you know, Jimmy Butler's not playing.
I am aware. Thank you. I'm going to go Timber Puppies because they kind of need it more.
They do need it really bad.
If they get another loss or two, within the next week, they're going to be outside looking in on the playoffs, which is astounding because they were the 3rd seed not long ago. Yeah, Timber Puppies for life.
I'm gonna pick the Celtics
Ooh.
because the Timberwolves
Thank God.
are on like the worst losing streak against good teams. Like they've only beaten Chicago and the Kings in the last 5, and they've lost pretty badly to Houston, Portland, and Utah. So I'm gonna go Celtics. Wolves are slumped.
Granted, that Utah game, that was the game that Cat got
He got
ejected
ejected,
from,
but
and from there on out.
You're
It
right.
was
That
still
was
like
the
a good
game.
That was the
matchup,
game.
though. It was a
It was a good matchup to end the game, and then Jeff Teague tried to kill Ricky Rubio, and
made me
he
so
also
upset.
got ejected, which he needed. I'm going Timber Puppies because I'm staying away from Lucas.
All right.
I like this trend. All right, going into Game 3, the number 1 seeds, East versus West.
It's gonna be so
Woo! Houston versus the Toronto Raptors. Now Toronto's at home.
What does the BPI tell us on this one?
57% in favor of the Raptors.
wow.
I am honestly surprised by that. I went into this game kind of knowing who I wanted to pick, but now I really don't.
Make Lucas pick first.
No, I'm going to pick first.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, changing it up.
All right.
This streak is going to die.
Which streak?
The Rockets' winning streak.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Lucas's losing streak.
Oh, no, that will live on forever. The Toronto Raptors, DeMar DeRozan, is going to take them down. And I believe in the Raptors in this game.
I picked the Raptors too.
Damn
Because
it.
I really don't like the Rockets. I
Yes.
just don't like them.
I'm raising my arms in victory right now. Obviously, I'm taking the Rockets.
It's a smart pick, but it's just the wrong pick. All right, game 4. We're going back with the Utah Jazz because they're playing New Orleans Pelicans with Anthony Davis dominating, maybe MVP according to Lucas's hot takes. The Pelicans are also favored 57% because they're at home. This is an interesting matchup. You got Rudy Gobert going up against Anthony Davis.
Yep.
Donovan Mitchell's going up against Drew Holiday. This could be a really fun one.
I'm excited to watch it for sure.
You have the best defensive team in the league, Utah, against right now the best offensive team in the league with the Pelicans. I really want Anthony Davis to win MVP, so I'm going to go Pelicans.
What is it, the unstoppable object versus
immovable
force?
Yeah, that's basically what this game is, but it's not that hyped because it's Pelicans Jazz.
Pelicans Jazz, baby, 10th seed versus the 4th seed. Let's go.
It's not like Bulls versus Pistons of like the mid 80s or late 80s, whatever.
I think it's better. I don't know what you're talking about. Donovan Mitchell's to go.
I'm struggling picking this one.
Who did you pick, Lucas?
Pelicans.
Pelicans? Go.
Yeah.
Largely because he picked the Pelicans. You want to pick first or next, I should say?
I'm going to pick the Jazz. I have faith in Donovan Mitchell, and I have faith in Rudy Gobert. And maybe Anthony Davis's hip won't be feeling good.
Is Tony Allen still in the Pelicans?
I don't even know if he's in the league, to be honest.
That's the spirit.
I don't know if he plays anymore.
Honesty is the best policy.
That'd
Grandma
be true,
taught me
too.
that. We're going to go, and by we're, I mean me. I'm going to go New Orleans.
Ooh, okay.
Which obviously I'm extremely nervous about since I decided with Lucas.
Well, don't be too nervous because this last game is the trade deadline matchup. The Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Los Angeles Lakers.
I think it'll be a fun game. I kind of
great
like
choice.
It. Lakers have been playing pretty well. Is Ingram back? Is Ingram going to be back?
I believe he should be back.
Because that's a huge...
Josh
Ingram's the best player on the team.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We need him in the end of games because otherwise it's Isaiah Thomas touching the ball and I cringe and I cry a little bit inside.
Oh, don't be mean to him.
Well,
He's had such a hard...
He gave me a heart attack the other night and it's just...
To me, it's like...
recovered.
It's in LA?
It's in LA.
Is Julius Randle, like, who's going to guard Julius right now? Because he's pretty hot right now. But is LeBron going to have to guard him? Is Tristan Thompson not going to play? Because they're 3 and
I don't think Tristan Thompson will play.
They're 3 and 18 when Tristan Thompson steps on the court. So like
no. They're 19 and we talked about this. They're 19 and 23.
They have a losing record when Tristan Thompson steps on the court.
And
whenever it is, and it's really bad.
18 and 3 when he doesn't play.
Okay, so it's the other way around. Anyway, Tristan Thompson should not play basketball for the Cavs.
Thanks a lot, Kardashians.
So that's going to suck because the moment he steps on the court, it's going to decide the game. But I don't want to pick Lakers.
Don't do it, man. Just don't.
This is so hard. They beat the Spurs.
I'm taking the Lakers. I'm just going to jump in because Lucas is taking way too long.
He's taking a long time with all these picks. Maybe we need to let him in like a week ahead of time so he can think about these picks.
Brutal. It's just bad for the pod.
It's bad for the game.
We need Adam Silver to come in.
I'm going to pick the Cavs. It's going to be a bounce back game.
It's just not because they're bad.
It's going to bounce back.
But I'll accept your choice as being wrong, so I'll win another week.
I just can't wait to go 5-0.
I can't wait for that day to ever happen because it's not the end of the world. The
5-0, baby.
Oh my God. The apocalypse would come. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to the Sip and Swish podcast. We had a joy this week. It was fantastic. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook. Our Twitter is going to be at Sip and Swish. Facebook's Sip and Swish NBA. Make sure you hit subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts to see our latest podcast coming up. We're on iTunes. We're anywhere podcasts are at. If you don't see us on your podcast app, hit us up on the Facebook or on the Twitter. We'll get on that podcast app for you.
Western Union is the sponsor for the Nuggets. Are you kidding me? They just have a big Western Union sticker.
They're out west, you know.
This is the beginning of our podcast.
Dude, it's going to be the best beginning ever.
Welcome to Sip and Swish.
Western Union. We're going to jump right in with Western Union.